Asking for a raise. For most of us, it's a really intimidating negotiation. Why? Well, there are lots of reasons. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about why it's hard to ask for a raise and then give you 5 tips on how to raise this hard negotiation in a way that increases the likelihood that you'll get what you deserve. And please stay to the end because I'm going to share with you a critical piece of advice that many people forget when they're asking for a raise or a promotion. Okay, so why is this such a hard negotiation? I think there's a number of reasons, but the biggest one is that when we are asking for a raise, it's a lot more than a typical negotiation, let's say over purchasing a car or selling your house or maybe getting your spouse to agree that you should go to Hawaii instead of London for vacation. And the reason why it's different is asking for a raise typically affects our identity or sense of self. So getting a no is at least as much about not getting the extra 50 cents or $2 an hour as it is about what that no means. That no can sometimes make us feel like we're not valued, we're not appreciated, we're not worth it. And so before you enter into that negotiation, you have to have a little bit of a negotiation with yourself. A conversation about a raise needs to really be detached from your own sense and story of yourself. And the way you do that is just by acknowledging this is a negotiation about whether I'm going to get more money. This is not a negotiation about the story I tell about myself or my self-worth or my value in the universe. Okay, so once you've gotten through that, here are 5 substantive tips that can help you succeed in your negotiation. So first is just doing your homework. Do research. Okay, what am I researching about? A number of different things. First, to the degree that you can get any information about the way your firm or your company or your organization gives promotions and raises, that is incredibly helpful. That might be asking colleagues, looking at publicly available patterns, etc. Second, you have to go beyond your own organization. Look at what are norms within your profession for raises. Sometimes people get an annual raise. Sometimes it's related to a promotion. Sometimes it's nothing more than a cost of living. But knowing what the relevant norms are for your profession is incredibly important. Doing that homework is going to make you more persuasive in the negotiation. Second, before you go into the negotiation, put yourself into the shoes of your supervisor or boss. Ask yourself, what are the reasons why they would want to give you a raise? And what are the reasons why they might not? For example, would it set a bad precedent? Are there limits on the budget? Do they have other priorities? Now, thinking this through should not discourage you from actually asking for the raise. But by putting yourself in their shoes, you are more prepared to think about how you will respond to their concerns and how to frame your ask in a way that makes it easy for them to say yes. A key component of being successful in a raise or promotion negotiation is making it easy for the other side, your boss or supervisor, to say yes. And so making a clear path for them is really important. Third, when you're going to begin this negotiation, choose the right time and place. So this may sound like really obvious advice, but it's a place where I know many people make mistakes. And here's why, right? You've been thinking over and over, sleepless nights, oh my gosh, I have to ask my boss, I'm letting it go on. And then you say something like, okay, by the end of this week, I am going to ask my boss for a promotion. But you delay, and now you're in a meeting on Friday morning with the boss, and the meeting is wrapping up, and you're like, I better ask for the raise. And you ask for the raise. And this is a big mistake. And it's a big mistake because the meeting itself was not about a raise. It's being done, it's squeezed in as an additional item, and everything is off. Instead, if you're going to have this conversation, actually reach out to your boss and supervisor and ask to get on their calendar for 20 minutes or a half an hour, where you can actually make sure it's a good time and they're prepared and you're prepared. And this leads to my fourth piece of advice, which is if you're going to make this request, be clear and direct and purposeful. This is actually a way of impressing your supervisor. So if you use contingent language, that is a mistake. What is contingent language? Oh gosh, I've been working here for so long and it's been 2 years and I was really thinking like costs have been going up and like I haven't had a raise and I wonder, if there'd be any consideration in the budget to give me a bit of a raise. Way too much hedging, lack of confidence, not clear. So you might need to practice this by making a clear and direct ask. Dear boss, it has been so much fun working here over the past 2 years. And I've been thinking about it, and I think it's an appropriate moment for me to get a promotion. Here's why. I'd like to hear your reaction to it and what concerns you may have, but I'm hoping you will see a path to make this happen. This is not arrogant, but it's showing that you are prepared and purposeful. And I think most managers who really value your work, even if they're going to say no to the raise, will appreciate the way in which you do it. And this leads to my fifth piece of advice. And this is just an area that I have seen people really mess up. Whether you get a positive response or a negative response or a contingent response, do not leave the meeting without having articulated a next step for you and a next step for your boss or supervisor. So what do I mean by that? Well, if your boss says something like, Joe, I wish I can do this. We're having across the board budget cuts. The economy is really shaky. I just can't do it this year. Don't just say thank you and leave. Instead, what you want to say is, okay, so it sounds like you can't do it this year. Help me understand what are the things that would need to change to make this possible for next year? And how can we each make that happen and check in with each other so that a year from now we're not in the same position? Your boss might say, well, these things are completely out of my hands. Okay, then say a little bit in whose hands they are in. Because one of the things that's really important to me, for me to grow here professionally, is to have some specific articulated next steps that will lead to my promotion or that will lead to a raise. And so I'd be incredibly grateful if we can articulate that here and then have a plan for what I need to do going forward. One of the reasons why I think this is really important is bosses and managers are really busy. And so one of the ways they handle this is by simply saying no or kicking the ball down the court, hoping that you'll go away. And what you're signaling to them here is that you are actually hearing what they're saying, but you are not going away. You want to make sure there's some next steps. So asking for a raise or a promotion in your job is always anxiety producing. It's anxiety producing because the consequence of getting a no is usually more than just you're not getting a raise or a promotion. It can hit us at this identity-based level. But you increase the likelihood of success if you can separate that identity question from the task of the negotiation itself. And then follow these 5 steps. First, do your homework. Second, make sure you consider their perspective, their interests, and their limitations, and frame your ask in ways that meet those interests. Third, before you begin the negotiation, choose an appropriate time and place for it. Next, when you make your ask, be direct, clear, and assertive. Lastly, whether you get a yes or a no, or check in with me in 3 months, make sure you leave the meeting with a specific next step that both you and your boss have. So to further lean into this question of asking for a promotion or a raise, keep watching the next video, which is how to start a difficult conversation at work. So now it's my turn to make an ask of you. I'm going to ask you to please like this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, ask you to do that. And ring the bell so that you'll get a notification every single time I produce a new video. Okay, keep on watching. Okay, you want to know how to have that difficult conversation. Okay, like, subscribe.